You've heard us talk about hormone therapy by Happy Mammoth many times by now. It's a supplement that helps women maintain optimal hormone levels with over 50,000 glowing reviews from women all over the globe. 98% say that they would recommend it to friends and family. And that's why we're recommending it to you. Now we can take those hormone harmony results even further by pairing it with Happy Mammoth's probiotic collagen protein. It helps restore gut lining integrity, promoting overall hormone balance. It also helps relieve occasional bloating, reduce sugar cravings, and helps you feel satisfied longer. Because your gut directly affects your hormones, improving gut health can amplify your hormone harmony results so you feel like yourself again. Happy Mammoth is dedicated to making women's lives easier, and that means using only science-backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. They make no compromise when it comes to quality, and it shows. Right now, you can try prebiotic collagen protein and hormone harmony risk-free and get 15% off your entire order with code MurderDiaries at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code MurderDiaries for 15% off today.
Josie, it's your new nanny, Polly.
The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, a Hulu original.
What do you know about her?
Now streaming.
You think if you try hard enough, you can stop bad things from happening, but you can't.
Good help.
Get out!
Is hard to find.
You made me do this.
A Hulu original. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Rated R. Now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus. For bundled subscribers. Terms apply.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for this day.
Welcome to Unscripted. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Paige. In this episode, we're talking about something that is very near and dear to me for multiple reasons. We're talking about the 2004 classic, really cult classic MTV show, Laguna Beach, The Real Orange County.
It was basically the OC, the show starring Misha Barton and Adam Brody, but with real kids.
And the best part is all of the cast members watched that show because that show had just come out like a year earlier. So it's really funny. And there's like an iconic scene where Lauren, her friend Jen Bunny, her friend Lo, who was also a castmate, are all watching the OC at their house. And we did that. We had nights where you would go to like your best friend's house, or you might rotate and you would all be together. I literally did this with my friends, and you would watch the OC. And I remember specifically, like, one of my friends was like, I don't want to say crimping because we were taking a piece of the 80s back then, but we weren't fully doing the 80s.
It was like a wider plate.
Yes.
It was still a crimp.
Yes. It was a crimp, but it was a wave. And clearly, if you're looking at any clips of me online, I have wavy hair already, but I didn't know how to take care of it back then because I straightened the crap out of it. So I specifically remember my friend was like waving everybody's hair for the next day because you could sleep on it and you would wake up and it'd still be wavy. And just watching the OC or whatever other show was out at that time. And that was just the early to mid 2000s life. And Laguna Beach, the real Orange County, was a big part of that. Natalie and I have a little bit of different perspectives on this because I was somebody who like watched it closely, was obsessed. I had the biggest crush on none other than Stephen Colletti. Stephen! I was obsessed. Sorry to my ex high school boyfriend, but I was obsessed. But if you saw my ex high school boyfriend, you could completely understand why I had such a crush on Stephen Colletti.
Did they look alike? We didn't know each other back then, so.
Yeah, they did a little bit. Like, the skater vibes, the dark hair, being a little bit like tan-esque from like being outside all the time and stuff like that. So yes, you could see why. I wouldn't say they're identical, but you could definitely get the vibes for sure. And now it's just funny because I rewatch this show once or twice a year. And my sister is always asking me, like, what is it about this show for you? Why do you rewatch this show so much? I do not understand it. And I can't really tell you. It is just a comfort show. It brings me nostalgia and comfort. Whereas, as I was explaining with Natalie, you obviously knew about it, but you weren't necessarily totally keeping up with it at the time.
I mean, I was definitely aware of it. I did watch. I should say I wasn't an avid watcher. If I caught the show, it was great. If I missed it, it wouldn't ruin my week.
There you go. Like, for being, it would have ruined my week. I would show up to chem class and one of my friends and I would always be talking about what happened on Laguna Beach the night before or whatever. And so, yeah, it was just a huge part of my life at this time. And yeah, I just loved the show. So if you didn't watch it, or maybe you don't remember a lot of it because it's been over 20 years now since the show premiered, we are taken back all the way to 2003/4. And you have Lauren Conrad, a longtime Laguna Beach resident. Her dad was actually an architect in Laguna, somewhat well known. Not that when we were watching, we understood that. And you see her enjoying the last semester of her senior year of high school. And I can't help, Natalie, but think how when people maybe not from the US catch this glimpse into high school life, it's one of the first times because no show had been done like Laguna Beach was. This was a cinematic documentary styled. It wasn't like Real World, Road Rules that we already had, Survivor, some of the like beginning reality TVs. This is like the first of its kind.
Right. These were high schoolers stressing about prom, stressing about cars breaking down. Oh, my car's done so. But it does make me think, like, I'm shocked that, number one, the high school administration would allow a film crew on campus. And then I'm shocked that these parents would allow their children to be followed by cameras. And it makes me wonder, is it because it was so new and so, like, I don't want to say revolutionary, but like it was such a new concept that they didn't understand what could come of it.
In no way could we understand this without talking about what Laguna is like as a community. Growing up in Southern California, I was very familiar with Laguna, and it is an artsy, hippie town. My mom used to talk about, she grew up in the LA area, and she used to talk about how they would drive down to Laguna and like hang out with the hippies, and friends, older brothers or what have you were living in Laguna with the hippies. Like, the beach towns didn't used to be tens of $1 million of value worth of home. I'm wording that really weird, but it didn't used to be seaside cliff mansions that are worth $30 million. It wasn't like that. It was kind of riffraffy.
It was like bungalows, beach bungalows. And I think that if we're comparing Newport and Laguna even today,
very different. Yeah.
Laguna's been able to maintain some of that artistic flair of that smaller sense of community. They have like the Sawdust Festival every year. They have
Pageant of the
Masters. It is a much more personality based. If you look at the homes, even it's not so cookie cutter like Newport is.
These people at this point, there's not like a home there worth, I don't think, less than 1.8 million. And
I would be shocked. And it's probably
2-3 million.
I imagine like even townhouses, they have a few, I'm sure. They're upwards of $1 million plus. You don't find anything there for under $1 million.
No, it's very expensive. I would say no yard, like maybe 1,300 square feet.
Like for the lot size?
$2 or $3 million home. Yeah. Like nuts. I think it depends on how close to the water you are, but still. Natalie and I are just wanting to paint a picture of how much has changed with Laguna, yet how much has also stayed the same. So these people are willing, for the sake of the community, to still keep these as bungalows, yet there's still a lot of money. So they're and things behind what they could be able to do to a home and to a lot. But the city's probably quite a bit behind that too. But so are the members of the community.
And it doesn't mean that gentrification isn't happening. There are...
Correct.
Oh my God, that was so weird in my throat. And that doesn't mean that there isn't gentrification happening. There are multi-million-dollar from the ground up rebuilds of homes next to beach bungalows. So you have a mix nowadays, but around 2003, 2004, it was a little less commercialized.
Yes, a lot more middle to upper middle class. They definitely were not broke, but Stephen Colletti talks about this on the podcast, which is such a great podcast, Back to the Beach, that he did a couple years ago with Kristen Cavallari, that he wasn't raised uber rich or uber spoiled. Like his car that he drove, his little truck, the film crew used to make him drive his dad's Explorer, which also wasn't like bright and shiny. But probably just because I'm looking back more now, 20 years later, that the car looks dated. But at the time, it was probably like a newer Explorer. They used to make him drive that whenever he could because, they wanted to paint this picture of these kids that have a little bit of money and are growing upper middle class in Orange County, which again, they very much were, but the community wasn't always like that. But like Natalie said, some of them were. And there's another famous scene where Kristen talks about how her car is the crappiest car at school because she was driving some old like Isuzu. Yes, that was definitely there. But again, we're still talking way more upper middle class than we are.
Right. It's a beach. It's a beach town. You're going to have more money than maybe someone who lives a little more inland, at least in California.
Yes, especially today. And we could go on and on about
we don't need to explain
pockets.
Newport Beach, Laguna to everyone. I feel like if they've seen the show, they have a sense of what it's like. Even if they've seen it once or twice, a lot of people come to town to Newport just to visit for vacation. So, I mean, even the Real Housewives have a show. So, like, we get a sense of what it's like, but it is good that we're painting the picture of what it was like back in 2003, 2004.
Especially, right. A lot has changed, yet also been kept the same over the last 20 years, which I think is just quintessential Laguna. It's such a unique and creative, bright community. And people caught on because of the show. And I think that is just so important for the backstory of why Laguna was selected to be the high school and the city that this show showcases. However, I will say that there was a rumor that my high school was also looked at to be part of whatever they were building. That could totally be a lie. Okay? Because high school, wouldn't we have loved it? But my sister swears, because she was in high school as well, that girls in her grade, one grade above LC, were looked at to be cast for some kind of something that MTV was trying to do. But what I think happened is, the rumor, even back then, was that our high school said, no, you can't film on campus. And you brought this up. And that's a really great point, Natalie, because guess what Laguna Beach High School did? They said yes. The parents kind of came together, and I don't know the timing of it all, but people were starting to get worried when they realized like how big everything was really actually going to be. And they were just told it was just a one-time documentary. And they're picturing true life in Laguna Beach. You know what I'm saying? They had no idea. And the high school then decided that no, MTV could not film on their campus, but everything had already been cast, and they did film the interviews on campus. So they got what they needed in order to cast. And I think that is what changed the game in terms of maybe any other high schools that they were looking at. So thus, here we are in Laguna. And they discovered during these interviews, Miss Kristen Cavallari, by the way, was not there on the day that
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, she was not there. But that girl, she made sure that it happened.
Of course, Kristen's going to make herself known. And it's interesting because she is a year younger than Elsie's class.
That's correct. So she was our junior representative, while Elsie and Kristen's boyfriend, Steven, were seniors. And of course, we have friends of theirs that are castmates and also just kind of in different scenes if they're not signed on. So you've got a couple of juniors, Kristen and Jessica, who are dating Jessica Dieter. Yeah. He's lying to you, or he's cheating on you, Jessica.
Yeah.
Like, when you grew up at least in Southern California, and I'm sure many other parts of this country, like those were your friends. Like they were just, it was so interesting to see exactly what you saw happening on the weekends and at school or surrounding school, right on camera. But so Jessica's dating Dieter, who is Steven's like longtime best friend, and Kristen is dating Steven, and they'd been dating kind of off and on since her like sophomore year. Kristen was not there her freshman year. But then I think maybe part of it, she finally came. It's a little bit wonky, but she did not start out at Laguna Beach High School and then did.
So,
and this is some lore for season 2 as well that we'll get into.
For clarity's sake, who dated Steven first? Lauren or Kristen? Or
Isn't that a great question? This is a great question because it's kind of a question the show made us all want to know, but I think by design didn't necessarily answer. However, especially through the Back to the Beach podcast, Lauren and Steven grew up together. They were buddies. And then some things happened around winter formal. I feel so silly talking about this at this moment because like it's high school lore. So I'm kind of giggling, but there were some things that happened at winter formal right before they started filming. And what they discovered during those interviews that they were filming on campus that Kristen made sure she became a part of, and good for her, was that there was a bit of a love triangle going on, that there was a fight between Elsie and Kristen kind of at winter formal over Steven. But Steven, I mean, this guy was down bad for Kristen. He tries to play it off. This kid, okay, down bad for Miss Kristen. And who wouldn't be?
I think that's where like a lot of the conflict comes in that love triangle, because like he has this long history with Lauren. He has sort of an allegiance because they are friends and they have kissed.
And then they ruin the friendship by kissing. Little callback to my girl T Swift. I mention her every episode. I don't care.
And then we have Kristen, who you just know he has this undeniable attraction to. And that's really hard to reconcile for him, at least. I mean,
they were like magnets. And you can edit as hard as you want. But that, for the relationships, I was Team Kristen. I really, really was.
Were you really?
In terms of...
I feel like nobody was back then because she was the villain.
They made her the villain.
Yeah.
They did. They made her the villain.
As we're talking about her being the villain, she sort of was like the prototype, right? Like she's this confident, chaotic blonde who really owned this narrative of like speaking her mind. And then the producers saw this girl as an opportunity to move along their storyline.
And the difference between this and The Hills for her was that here she didn't necessarily recognize what was happening. She also didn't have a frame of reference, but by The Hills, she knew what they wanted and she leaned into that. And it wasn't even her real life at all. The Hills, she kept her real life 100%. Even the people she was dating, 100% away from the camera.
Like when she was on The Hills, she was breaking that fourth wall. She was like waving, smirking at it. Like she knew exactly what she was doing. Everything was really intentional versus...
It's going to be like that. Iconic moment when she's yelling at Audrina and some friends. You guys come at me like piranhas. And it's just so quintessential her.
Hey,
and
she had to get paid. She has 3 kids. And Jay wasn't working. Or maybe he was at the time. Or maybe they weren't married at the time.
True. Not long after. But again, this is why we don't even see anything like that, right? On camera, because she kept everything very much off camera in terms of her actual private life, because it blurred too much of what was real and not. And she learned this on Laguna and just knew how to do it. She figured it out and she viewed it as a job, not her life, and very smart. I mean, listen, she says things in a funny way, or people want to, like mimic, a Valley girl way of talking that she has.
But is she even a Valley from Laguna Beach? A Valley girl?
No, she's not even from there.
It's just a California accent, I guess.
She lived there for a few years and then LA, but she's from Colorado, or not Colorado, excuse me. She's from Illinois.
Is she?
I think
See, I'm learning so much.
I think there was time or a connection to Colorado as well. And then, or at least that's been mentioned before, because I'm telling you, I read the behind the scenes book from Laguna Beach. I think it was called Laguna Beach, The Untold Story or something. If I could get my hands on that book again, I would read that cover to cover again. And I've listened to all her podcasts, her interviews. Like, I'm very engaged and interested in her and Elsie too. So these are all things I've heard like offhand throughout the last 20 years. So can't remember, but there's some kind of connection to Colorado too, I swear. Then moved to California with her dad. Maybe that's what it was. I think her dad was in Colorado, her mom in Chicago after they divorced or something. And then when her dad moved to California, she kind of started getting in trouble in and around 8th grade and then moved out to be with her dad. And then, so yeah, to answer your question, she didn't live in California even like that many years. Like, I would say she's lived more not in California than she ever lived here. Not that she doesn't get to claim Laguna, because she did very much grow up there. But, that's a really great question. It's kind of a piece of irony about all of this in regards to the shows.
She was here long enough to get into the limelight. And it just,
that's right.
When we have talked to, I think we talked to Colt, and he was talking about the Kardashians, saying that they were always meant to be famous. I sort of feel the same way about Kristen.
100%. When this girl is talking or on camera, she is interesting. She is engaging. She is like a little powerhouse, Uncommon James, her jewelry line, her businesses that she's built out of this notoriety. She's very smart, all well, as you mentioned, having 3 kids now. So she's definitely continues to be interesting to me. But all of this again started because in the interviews, MTV realized that there was this love triangle. And you can tell throughout the show, you know how things go in and out in high school, right? Like, oh, so-and-so and so-and-so's in a fight over this guy or that girl or whatever the heck. And then like 2 weeks later, it's over, right? Well, this love triangle, it was kind of like that. Like, Steven and Lauren hooked up. Well, he and Kristen were a little bit kind of like hot, cold. He hooks up with Lauren. And by the way, in SoCal, when you say hook up, it does not mean going all the way. Okay. So they like make out and whatever. And then, like that like fizzles out. He and Kristen kind of get together. That whole love triangle kind of fizzles out in terms of like Lauren and Kristen's lives, but the show would not let it die. So the questions that like their friends were told, like, you need to ask them about XYZ, or you need to ask Steven about managing Lauren and Kristen, or asking him if Lauren's going to be there. Like, all of these things, they just wouldn't let this blip on the radar for these people, while impactful to the relationship, I'm sure. But it was supposed to fizzle out the way that these like middle school, high school things do. Again, you show up to school 2 weeks later, we're already on to the next whatever's going on. But they wouldn't let it die down. And we see that in season 1.
Well, they needed their storyline. Of course, they weren't going to let it fizzle out.
Yep. And they couldn't. And they just push. I honestly wonder if it could have even turned out better if they let it fizzle out the way that everything fizzles out. But again, first of its kind, they didn't necessarily know probably what it was going to look like when it all came out either. They have a really interesting conversation on Back to the Beach, not to keep calling back to another podcast, but they have a very interesting conversation with one of the producers. And it's worth a listen. It's very interesting. So we get Team Lauren and Team Kristen throughout that whole season. We've got dances, we've got prom. They're basically, as you mentioned, like they're just being kids. Like that's really all you're watching. It's kind of like, it's almost about nothing.
Well, and you said something really impactful right now. They were just being kids, but the media and society really took it and ran with it. Like you have been saying that the show didn't let the storyline die down because they needed it. But in pre-production, we were talking about what we would touch on for a second. And you mentioned even Hollister having t-shirts that said Team Lauren and Team Kristen. So it wasn't just the production companies that weren't letting it die down. It was like the greater pop culture.
Oh, yeah, the public.
Like everyone wouldn't let it die down.
It fed us. That show, each episode with this continued callback to this blip of a romance between Steven and Lauren, or
between teenagers.
This blip of a love triangle is what I'm really trying to say between teenagers. the public wouldn't let it die down because, again, they're feeding us with every single episode. And that just was very interesting. Yeah, like Hollister over teenagers. Like it is kind of weird, but who were they marketing to? Other teenagers. So it was other teenagers that were wearing, Team Lauren or Team Kristen on their shirts.
But isn't it wild? Like, as someone that was also in sort of a love triangle, but with like theater kids, like my own version of it in high school at this same time, it's like hard to wrap my mind around people rooting for one or the other and to be so invested. I can't imagine. I'm so glad like my life wasn't documented the way these teenagers' lives were, because as we know nowadays, they still get asked about it. It's still very much part of their lore and their history versus like anyone else. We can forget it. We can move past it. And it's just something that happened when we were kids.
Oh, we will not let Laguna die down. Kristen's best friend from high school, whose name also happens to be Lauren, but she went by Alex because that was her middle name.
I mean, there were so many Laurens, though. There was Lauren Conrad, Bosworth, whose name was Lauren, the one you just mentioned.
I can't blame her for wanting to go by Alex, but also she went by Alex before Laguna Beach. So she went by Alex H before Laguna Beach. Who knows why? She sort of explains in an episode that it was like, I think a middle name. And she decided that Alexandra would just be something she'd like to go by. Like, I think she said she did like in like middle school or something. I don't know. But it's definitely something kids do sometimes, right? And so that's her best friend. And she was talking the other day about how she sees now that she's rewatching for this upcoming reunion, which I'm very excited about, whatever this reunion special or whatever is going to look like. And she talks about how, you guys, I'm rewatching Laguna Beach and I can see why you guys are so enthralled now. Like, because she's so far removed from it now. She is watching more as a viewer, I think, than anything else. And probably like, oh, how special that my lives were documented, just like you were saying. Comes with good and bad, but she's like, yeah, I see why now. Like the drama, you guys, I see why you like this show. And there's a different piece of drama, something going on that was so heart-wrenching in like every episode, because and Steven says this a couple times, I'm hurting one or the other and I don't know what to do. But in reality, it was always Lauren that got hurt, and that got her as a favorite. But now that I look back and
she wasn't as much of a nice girl as she was painted back in the day.
100%. And listen, if Elsie hears this, which she probably won't,
we don't mean that you're a
brat
just the way you
or
said
anything
that.
now. Hey, it's the truth. And we don't mean that you are a brat or a mean girl, but there was this sugar coating to everything that happened with her and kind of quote to her.
She really played into the victimhood of it all. Did I ever tell you that I had a run-in with Elsie?
How have you not told me that? I'm actually feeling a little bit upset that I don't know this story and I need to know absolutely everything.
Okay, so the year is 2010. So the early 2000s, and I'm at college out at UCLA. And I had an internship with a literary agency called RWSG. And I would walk into town from campus to work my shift. And it was in this little building that had a second story. And that's where I would walk up exterior stairs to the office. Next door, literally next door, we shared a wall, was Elsie's office, where she would... I would peek inside the window sometimes, like, because I would be there later than she would. She would like end at 5, and I think I would end at like 6, like my shift.
I'd be out there every day at 5. Just who knows what, picking something up off the floor. Don't care.
I mean, she
Hilarious.
had like, you could see clothes on mannequins, and it just was like a cool space. You could see the things that they were working on for her clothing line. I think it was at Kohl's at the time.
The time of the Kohl's LC jeans. I had a pair. I loved those things.
I think she still has her brand there, and she even has a
too.
children's clothing brand there as well.
Yes.
But one time...
It was just iconic at the time.
It was iconic.
You know what I mean?
And I will say that she wasn't there all the time. I think there were other people that worked there. But I did see her because, I mean, she had to walk up those same stairs I had to walk up, never would get eye contact. And a few times she would have photo shoots outside in the breezeway. So the building, like I said, we were on the second story. She was next to us. Her office was before mine, then mine was the next door. And there was like this patio area where you could walk and you could have like tables. She would have photo shoots and like the cameras would be going off. And I would see it from my desk because I was in the front desk answering phones and reading coverage. And it was just so wild to think like, oh, that's LC from Laguna Beach designing her clothes for Kohl's and she won't even look at me. But it's not like I'm lurking because I'm a creeper and want to see what she's doing. It's like it's because I'm there. I'm working. So I just thought it was so interesting.
I can't stress enough how big of a difference therapy through Rula has made in my life. For the last many years, I have turned to Rula to access my therapy in order to manage things like OCD, as well as just the everyday stuff from existing here on Earth. I love being able to access it virtually, especially during the pandemic. My OCD was not comfortable going in person. And the selection of therapists I was able to choose from was incredible. I seriously love my therapist that I have right now so much. So with Rula, you too can find the right therapist for you. No, really, I mean that because Rula partners with over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists that operate nationwide. And listen, most of your major insurance companies are going to cover in-network care. Most patients pay as little as $15, but depending on your coverage, you might pay $0. I know I do. And if that's not enough, Rula is committed to being there with you every step of the way. I know they've been there for me the entire time I've been with them. They've helped me find the right therapist twice now, 2 amazing therapists that I've been able to work with. They also remind me when I have an appointment. They can do this for you too. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to rula.com/diaries to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Go to rula.com/diaries and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton, but where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in one convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
No one should have to choose between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Purina is helping to create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters through the Purple Leash Project, so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
It's Huluween on Disney+. Watch frightful family favorites like Hocus Pocus and Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas on Disney+. Then take the terror to 10 with a thrilling new remake of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Scream, and more with Huluween on Disney+. All these and more streaming this Halloween season with Hulu on Disney+. Bundle subscription required. 18+. Select Hulu content via Disney+. Additional content on Hulu app. Terms apply. Visit disneyplus.com/Hulu for details.
Do you think it was more in a mean girl way, or do you think she's a little bit shy?
She's aloof.
Because I could actually see her. Yeah, okay.
I don't think it was
a
a mean girl, like intentionally snubbing me because who am I to her? Nobody.
Right.
I am just a girl similarly aged. And so maybe she saw me and was busy doing what she was doing. I don't know. but
Right.
there's
and
an
also,
aloofness
does she need to be
her.
like, hi, like,
Kristen would have, hey, how's it going? Or, like in her
true.
Kristen voice.
Yeah. But I'm thinking back to this quote from Elsie where she actually very much hates that kind of like, I don't want to call it fakeness, but like a better
I hate
word
that
where
too.
people are just like, oh, hi. That's the actual quote. She goes, I don't want to be like, oh, hi, just because you feel like you have to say hi. It's like, okay, we don't know each other. If I don't want to talk, then you don't have to talk. Aloofness is the perfect way to put it.
I relate to that though. I don't like small talk, and I don't like feeling I have to engage in an awkward encounter. However, it was like, I work in the office next to you. I see you.
Say good morning.
Like, just
say
an acknowledgement, head nod, that's all. And
a smile.
Like, I'm not here to snap a picture of you on my phone. It wasn't like I was crowding this area hoping to see you because I knew your office was there. It was like we work next door to each other.
You got to remember here too that this is pretty much the time you're talking about is the height of The Hills. Laguna built Lauren and she was the narrator, but The Hills was her spinoff. So this is a girl who, she's clearly working in real life, like on the things that you were talking about, but she's also filming a national reality television show that was kind of the second of its kind now. So I think that
she was just so far beyond a college student, a regular average kid.
And right. And it's not to say she thought that in the forefront of her mind as, you see her there in the breezeway or coming up the stairs, but right. Being able to be aloof is just like, I don't have to. It's kind of a bit of a power thing where she doesn't need to worry about
a power thing or
have my own show.
Maybe she just had a lot on her mind. I can't imagine.
Right.
I mean, I was focused on this internship and finals and, papers for my classes. I can't imagine running a multi-million-dollar business with a contract with a merchandiser throughout the United States.
And discussing already, even at such a young age, that you don't really like to do that kind of stuff. You're not really like that kind of girl that just does the small talk. But I agree. Like,
I actually really like her though. Like, despite those like awkward,
100%.
that awkward vibe, I feel like she seems the most grounded and she really knows what she wants in life. And you can see that even the way she runs her social media nowadays. She doesn't feel like she needs to be posting all the time. When she posts, it's intentional. And I don't know, I like a lot about her. I like her aesthetic. I used to go on her website. I don't think she has it anymore. She used to have a blog that was like a blog, but also a website.
I think that she's probably a little bit more shy too than being on TV allows you to like pick up on. Just in general. So that wouldn't surprise me too.
I think she's shy, but also
shy, aloof, doesn't like small talk. Like you add all that together, like she's not acknowledging
I think she's sensitive.
on that stairway. Yeah.
And I can relate to that too. So
she's not acknowledging people on the stairway that she doesn't know. Like just point blank period, add the show on top of it. Like I can see why. And like you said, it not being in a mean girl way, it just wasn't going to happen. And that's okay. Whatever. Like you said, it's not life-changing. You still enjoyed her blog. You still, have peeped on social media.
I've like even taken her photos of her hairstyles to the hairstylist and told them, can I get this color? Because it's beautiful. So she is definitely, I feel like out of everyone from that show, besides like Kristen, she's really made a name for herself and she's paved her own path. She doesn't rely on reality TV or even podcasting like maybe Kristen has. Like Kristen, I feel like is more of a personality, whereas Lauren is a person that says, this is my work, take it and run with it. And I want to be more of a behind the scenes person. Do you know what I mean?
Truth. And I think that is why I personally did enjoy season 2 a little bit more for certain reasons. It was also a longer season and Kristen narrated because she's just a little bit more engaging in that respect. And that's not anything against Elsie at all because I thought she did a great job too. And I was still very interested in her story. Something funny that is coming to mind when I'm talking about story before I get too into kind of the transition to season 2 is there's this scene, like this is how new reality TV was, even though it'd been on for a long time because of like Real World. But other than that, like, you know, the Survivor and all of these other reality TV shows that were different that were coming out at the same time, how different Laguna was from it and how much we didn't really know what we were looking at, even in terms of like editing, is because there's this scene where Lo, Elsie's best friend since like elementary school, there's only a couple elementary schools in Laguna, one middle school and one high school. So
it's a very small town
middle school, you know, everybody
vibe.
Yeah, I feel like Orange County's, while it's a major metropolitan area, the majority of cities were very good at doing that, where they really turned each little city into its own pocket and community. And they all kind of differ actually a little bit too, when you really dive in. Orange County is a very interesting place. So anyways, when Lo gets this car for graduation, it's got this red bow on it. It's a cute little like 2004 white Jetta. And she's so excited. It's like her dream car, which at the time, like only the cool girls drove a Jetta, and it was white or it was red. If I think back to my high school, one of the cool girls, a couple years older, just like Elsie, drove a red Jetta, and I forever wanted a red Jetta until at one period of my life, I did.
I was going to say,
finally have one.
Yeah, I think when I met you, you had one.
Yeah, I think I still had her. She was a good car. Her name was Scarlett.
Yeah, I knew her name was Scarlett.
So I just love that Lo got that. But here's the deal that proves or showcases, I should say, as a better word, that we didn't know what we were watching editing wise or anything like that. Because then you fast forward a couple more episodes and there is a concert, or no, it was before this episode. There's an episode with a concert, a Blink-182 concert.
Which is also very Southern California.
So it was in San Diego, outdoor forum.
Well, that's where they're from.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that would have been like, I actually don't know where they would have been, so I'm not going to guess. But when you watch this episode, when they're walking to their cars, Steven's friend Trey starts having some discourse with this little person, and the little person is clearly drunk, but he's got, as the girls refer to them, a lot of big friends behind him.
When you say little person, do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like he's a little person and he's making jokes, right? But he's got a lot of like not little people friends that could probably fight them. And Trey, again, one of the another main cast member, is really like not trying to fight it. And then Steven comes out and he's like, let's just go our separate ways. Like, let's just go our separate ways. And then Lo and Lauren are like, let's just like get in the car. And then everyone's like, what is happening? Like, what just happened? So basically they kind of get encountered in the parking lot. But regardless, they get into a car. And I clocked that car so fast in high school, being like, that's a Jetta. But then the next episode, she's receiving a white Jetta for graduation.
That's just messy editing, I'm going to be honest.
It's a little bit messy editing, but here's what everybody thought at first, okay? And this is what showcases it. Even myself, we go, oh, she didn't really get that as a gift for graduation. They made that up for the episode. Okay, whatever. That's how we wrote it off. No, ma'am. She did get the Jetta for graduation. Where the messy editing came from was that the timing was off. The concert happened after graduation. So, of course, she already had the car. So it's kind of funny how we just thought, oh, they're lying because we thought that it was given to us in sequential order, when in reality, editing is actually quite frankly, very, very rarely in sequential order. Things happen out of time all the time. And I think that where this is also showcased really great is I feel like Steven was really hard set on explaining this in the podcast, Back to the Beach, because there's other moments he talks about it too. Or like pickup scenes where he's like, oh yeah, that was like literally months later. I had to like put my shirt back on and I had to talk about prom again or like whatever. So it's very interesting when we're talking about the editing and understanding what we were watching. We had no idea. And maybe I should also call myself out. I don't know if I picked up on the white Jetta as well as the internet community and old forums as much in high school because you weren't really able to rewind. You were able to get away with a lot more. TiVo was just coming out and it was expensive and just wasn't felt as a general need yet in a family home. And I mean TiVo specifically because it was like the only DVR system at the time. But probably once I had the DVD, this is going to take you back a little bit to Natalie, the DVD sets where you had full seasons of a show on DVD. Could you imagine like Grey's Anatomy since they have like so many seasons?
Oh my God. It would be it would be a full wall of DVDs.
Yeah, of like just Grey's Anatomy. So I'm thankful we don't have to do that today, but I do own those seasons, those what do you want to call them, series or season sets still of Laguna Beach because I would not get rid of them when I got rid of all of my DVDs. They're the only ones I kept. Plus, I think I kept my Disney ones just because I couldn't park quite yet. And what I noticed is interesting is music has changed. So like season 2, which I kind of want to segue into, the graduation episode, the song is, it goes like, time, where did you go? And why did you leave me alone? Or whatever. And like when you watch it on Paramount and or when it was on Netflix, the song is completely different. And it irritates me. I'm like, what happened?
That's why I'm a big advocate for physical media. I feel like for a while since this time of that we're talking about, we've lost a lot of like the desire to have physical copies of books, DVDs, CDs in our houses. I think we all got a little bit overwhelmed by the clutter. I don't want to call it art clutter, but it does take up space. And there was this moment of starting to clear out a lot of that physical media and adopt streaming services. So you can get a lot of these shows online. You can get music from your phone and iTunes where you don't have to have the DVDs with you or the CDs with you. But like you're mentioning, when you don't have the physical media, there can be changes made that you're unaware of. And it won't always be the same that it was originally.
It changes the experience.
It does. It changes.
Like that song was to evoke emotion and the song they replaced it with does not.
And it's not just changing the emotions or changing songs in media nowadays. A lot of TV shows are basically disappearing because it costs money to keep them on streaming platforms and more money than they're bringing in. And so a lot of these platforms are just saying goodbye to full-on TV shows, seasons of them, or because they don't want to pay for them to be on their platform anymore. And so
you definitely don't get to ensure your access when you're only streaming.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah. I mean, I have purchased certain ones that I like would never want to lose, like movies or things like that.
More
like
collectibles though.
Yeah, more like I might actually end up purchasing Laguna Beach, especially season 1 and 2, although I did watch season 3, which we'll probably cap this episode with a bit. But so all that to say, again, the song was to evoke emotion and it changed, and it changes your experience watching. And it's such a lesson in streaming and still respecting physical media, whether digital or whatever. But when you think about season 1's graduation episode, there's a massive difference in the emotion evoked at the graduation episode, or in the graduation episode, I should say, because guess what song they played? I'm going to give you one guess, Natalie. What song in 2004 or 5, whenever those episodes were coming out, do you think that they played? I think we're talking fall 2004 when all these episodes were coming out. What song do you think they would have put into a graduation episode?
Vitamin C.
You got it. As we go.
Literally,
on.
yes.
That song will hit.
It's the graduation song.
It is the graduation song. And if you graduated from like probably 2002 to like 2000 and probably like 8, like that song, you were thinking about it. Okay. You were thinking about it. You remembered it. It was played, whether it was your 6th grade.
I was going to say,
grade.
I think we played it for like my 8th grade graduation and my high school graduation. So it was prevalent for a few years. We wouldn't let that song go.
No, we couldn't let it go because it was one of few that did its job.
It encompassed the feeling of leaving one chapter of your life and going into the next.
The only song that also does this, and it usually is more so for maybe classes that were a little bit ahead of us, but still around the same time, is Good Riddance by Green Day. You see that used a lot too. So it's like, you couldn't use that for season 2, or who knows, money, whatever was involved and why they had to change it. Lord only knows. But let's talk about season 2 in general, outside of just the graduation episode. So Kristen narrates this season. So that's
Lauren had graduated, so.
Because Lauren had graduated, and so that was a big change, but it worked. That season even got more episodes, interestingly enough.
I didn't know that. And I wonder if that is, I can't imagine that would bother Elsie because she's so not into.
No, she had her own show.
She had her own show. Yeah. She left that life behind her.
Exactly. And there's nothing more classic than this cast of Laguna Beach than wanting to leave things where they were. Like they were always wanting to go on to the next, like next. And you see that a lot with Kristen even still. And she admits it in her podcast. I was like, girl, I clocked this so long ago about you and I get it. But she's always, throughout her whole life, always been wanting to be older, wanting to be on to the next. Not like, once you're done with high school, lame. Now I'm in college. That's cool. Now that I'm done with college, I'm done. Like, it's hard to explain what I mean. And I don't know if anybody is going to catch what I'm trying to say, maybe even besides Kristen, who will not be listening.
Well, she's always ready for the next step instead of embracing the now or living in the moment. At least that's what it sounds like.
And I think it has to do with just, looking towards that future. But then, like as soon as like when she's a junior, all she wants is like, I can't believe this is going to be us graduating next year. And then as soon as they're graduating, it's like, oh yeah, I'm dating a guy up at college. Like, she's always kind of on to the next, and she probably appreciates and enjoys change. She has actually mentioned that she's trying to slow that down, but that's been that girl since she was a teenager and on TV. So, but I clocked that so long ago, and that's like so her. So, but I think that she very much enjoyed and was excited to be the narrator of this season. And we get a few more characters in this season. Talon is much more showcased in this season. Her friends, she's got a few more people in her grade that are brought on in this season. So we see them do things like ski week and the promposals, which is so funny because I think in the areas and high schools that you and I went to, we very much had these prom and homecoming proposals that were a little bit over the top. And they talk about it, yet again on Back to the Beach, on how that was very kind of unique to their area and high school, that like people, when they talk to them, they ask them, was that real? Because we didn't have that in my high school. And I'm thinking the whole time, well, this is normal because we do that in high school too.
It was a big
people
deal
still
if
do it.
They didn't ask you in a fun proposal type way.
Yeah, you may have known that you were going to go together, but you
still had to be asked.
Right. You needed the poster board with all the candy bars on it, making a kitschy phrase asking you if you wanted to go. Or you needed
I had a guy
the
take me to
goldfish
lunch.
In a swimming pool.
I had a guy take me to lunch, and we were late for like 5th period, which is like the period after lunch. But we went to a pizza place because like pizza is like one of the staples in my diet. And he had them make it into a heart and asked me to prom. Like it said prom on there and pepperonis.
Cute. Stop. See, those are the types of things we did. Some people got more over the top. I even remember at my high school, I was substitute teaching this time. I was no longer attending. And I was still in grad school and whatnot. And this kid comes into the choir room. I was subbing for choir, which was my favorite class to sub. Oh, I loved it. They're just so cool to watch these kids make art and sing and like, oh my gosh. And by high school, they're like self-directed, right? So like,
yeah, there's not much
cool.
hand holding.
I just got to watch. So this guy comes in and full on does a song to ask this one girl to prom. And I had chills and I was like, oh my god.
It sounds like a very Glee moment. I feel like if
it was, and
I
this
were
is the
asked
Glee era
in a performance, I would die and be so like, I'm the type of person that like, I told Tim before we got engaged or even obviously like when we were dating, I told him, do not ask me in front of people. Like, I'm going to say yes, because like we've been together for so long and like, this is where we want our relationship to go. Don't ask me in front of people. I don't want it to be, I don't want it to feel awkward. I can't imagine.
And in high school though, like, doesn't that, of course it's nerve-wracking and can be embarrassing in the good way of embarrassing, but like, isn't that the thing of it though, right? You're making a show of it.
Right.
Like, that's like the whole thing. And so that was just like a really fun moment. But like, yeah, I'm listening this whole time and I'm going, oh, well, we did like the same things that you guys did, like that Trey did in season 1, prom and candles. I think that Kristen in season 2 for winter formal, which very typically in at least Southern California, winter formal is girls ask guy. So is Sadie Hawkins.
Really? Was it yours?
Guys ask
girls ask guy.
Prom. Yeah, winter formal.
Oh, we only did Sadie Hawkins girl ask guy. And I always thought that was weird because it was the most casual of all the dances.
I know. And that was probably the biggest one. I don't think winter formal, like girls were asking very elaborately like they did for Sadie's, but homecoming and prom were guy ask girl. And then obviously Sadie's and winter formal were girls guy. But Kristen like is standing there with like a sign for her, like one of her first friends, like that just said like winter formal ? Or whatever, with like balloons. Alex, which is another Alex M, who's a new cast member to season 2. She and her friend Taylor, also a new cast member, but whose name we hear in season 1. So it was kind of like little Easter eggs started cracking in season 2 because you'd be like, oh, wait, So Kristen in season 1 talks about Steven, like, you were coming down from Lauren's house at like 9 p.m. because Taylor saw you. So don't say it was 7 and don't say that you didn't go there. So like, don't lie to me. And some people that watch as much as I do are cracking up because it's literally the quote is, so don't lie to me. So don't lie about it or whatever. And so I guess Taylor had seen Steven coming down because again, small town, they all live up these same hills and can see each other going to and from when they recognize each other's cars. But so Taylor is best friends with this girl, Alex. They join us for season 2. And in their winter formal proposals, they ask the infamous Jason Waller and I think Cedric. Yeah, Jason's like best friend Cedric. They ask them to winter formal. They lead them on this like elaborate, especially for teenagers, goose chase, if you will, scavenger hunt that leads them to the beach.
That was another
big
type of asking to dances.
Yes.
Or style of asking.
Got to have the scavenger hunt, right? And the scavenger hunt led them to the beach where the girls were in these like long boxes with like balloons on them. And the guys are walking up. It's so funny. And one of them goes, my box is laughing. Because here's the thing, especially in high school, like you're so nervous, you're going to hear no, that like, of course you've already kind of talked about going together, like, oh, and the only reason Alex was going with Jason was because they had talked about it, like, I guess a long time ago. But here's the deal. At the time, Jason was dating Jessica. Yes, Jessica from season 1, who was dating Dieter. She is now dating Jason. And this relationship kind of goes down in Laguna fame because Jason starts feeling out Alex M, especially after they go to this dance together and everything. But then Jessica in this season ends up the other woman. I mean, not that was not what happened exactly to me in high school, but we'll leave that out of this episode. Calling myself out, but I did become the other woman for my high school boyfriend.
Oh my gosh.
I did become that, unfortunately.
Knowingly?
But when you date somebody first, you sort of feel like
you have a claim.
You have some kind of claim like, well, we were just off. That's the only reason you guys are dating. We were off. You kind of got together and you're going to break up anyways, kind of thing. You know, like I think my dumb high school brain probably thought that. But yeah, he was a hot mess and not a good boyfriend at all. But Jessica becomes this other woman and it takes the rest of the season. I mean, that is your love triangle for season 2 because, well, the Kristen and LC thing is still very much there. Like Kristen goes and visits him in San Francisco. He comes home in the first episode for Lo's Christmas party that she's having, but they sort of, and I think they did this smartly, they sort of phase out the seniors from the year before little by little, with the exception of Steven. They sort of cut them little by little. We start with them all coming home for Christmas, yada, yada. Kristen and Alex H and Jessica talking about being seniors and how they just love not caring anymore because as a senior, you don't have to care anymore. It's just hilarious high school talk and it's chef's kiss when you rewatch it as an adult. It's hilarious. That's what we start with, this big Christmas party and because everyone's home and Lo's having a party. But then little by little, right, we're getting into the Alex, Jessica, Jason of it all. And Kristen telling her friend, Jason is cheating on you. And then she kind of like giggles and saying like, that's how he's lying because he's da-da-da-da-ing. And like, that's what I used to do. She swears like she cheated on him. She calls herself out about this on the podcast. Like, what was I even talking about? I thought I was so cool. Like, what did I mean? That's what I used to do. But all to say, this is what season 2 ends up becoming. We kind of rerun this love triangle idea and then they graduate. And really with this cast, and not all of them, but we move on to the Hills and Kristen ends up also joining the Hills. And as Lauren leaves, when we have Spidey's wedding, that is the episode that Kristen comes in on and Lauren says goodbye on. And I think Lauren left at a good moment and it was just kind of bittersweet or full circle for Kristen to come in.
She passed the baton to her.
Yes. And it made so much sense by then. And they even talk about how like, because they had Lauren on Back to the Beach, like a special episode. They even filmed it. So it's on YouTube. It's a great episode.
Did it seem awkward?
Well, there's a few awkward moments because Kristen goes, yeah, we didn't really have beef. Like that's what people don't understand. And Lauren goes, well, she didn't say those exact words, but she goes, we didn't really have like a problem. And I get what Kristen was saying, but Lauren, Elsie clocks her and is like, well, we did. But like, he's right there. But like, I think what Kristen was really meaning is I never not liked you.
Yeah.
It's just that you hooked up with my boyfriend who I was on a break with, but we didn't know it was a break at that time. And so, and I think Kristen's also just alluding to the fact that
maybe it was more real for Elsie. And maybe Kristen can separate herself a little bit more from her performance.
Yeah, well, and she also kind of got the guy to the point where he was begging for her to come to San Francisco and say things like, yeah, like Friends works. And Kristen goes, does it? Like that's an iconic moment from season 2 as well, because he comes to town and he wants her. I can't remember if he comes to town, asks her, but like he brings up her visiting, like, please come and visit me at San Francisco. Because he went to San Francisco State for 1 year. I also, and this is notorious up in San Francisco, SoCal kids only last a year at San Francisco State.
That's so funny.
I had a great time, but I also only lasted a year there. And I promise I didn't only go there for him, but I definitely hoped that I would catch a glimpse, but he was already gone. He had already moved to LA and was moving on with things. But there's just some iconic moments in season 2 that involve Kristen and Steven again, but it's primarily him kind of puppy dogging, wanting to see, can I get my high school girlfriend? Can this work again? And Kristen, she's done with it. And she's dating a Heisman Trophy winner by this point up at USC. Yeah, she's just so far moved on. But they had already broken up by the time she visited him in San Francisco because she didn't visit him until second semester. So, but so you could see they kind of dragged Steven into the season minimally, but they
didn't really need him
had
though.
Him on there. They didn't necessarily need him, but I think they wanted to give us closure to their relationship. And we were already moving on to the Jason Waller of it all, who maybe will do something about the Hills, although there's a lot more seasons. So it's a lot more tough. It's a lot more tough. It's a lot tougher to do for us. But so in the case that we don't cover anything about the Hills in the future. Lauren does end up dating Jason Waller on the Hills and in real life for quite a little while. He's doing phenomenal, by the way. He is still great friends with Kristen. They have reconnected because he's also
popped up in like People
way.
magazine a few times.
Yeah.
When
he's sober.
Got sober, when he got married. Mm-hmm. He has a family now.
He relapsed and got back together. Like he's really been through it, but it's really cool to see that he's out there near Kristen and that they're in touch and buddies because they were friends before he was dating Jessica. Yeah, in season 2. So they have this history and they really understand each other and can kind of see because Kristen has a ton of feminine yet masculine energy. And I think that that's where a big baseball player like Jason, who was getting all the girls, because Kristen could also at that time get like any guy she freaking wanted. She reminds me of like my best friend in high school and middle school. This is where I met that best friend. And yeah, she could just pull any dude she possibly could. And even when we would go out in our 20s, it would just like exhaust me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just done. I don't want to go out with you anymore because I'm not pulling any dudes. But yeah, like that was Kristen and that was Jason. And now they've both, are somewhat settled down, whether in life and or marriage and relationships and kids. So it's really kind of interesting and full circle that he moved out her way out towards Nashville or Franklin, I think they're in. Anyways, I don't want to get too far gone without talking about season 3 because we're already at a point where I've kind of discussed through season 2 that a lot of those people end up, popping in and out of the Hills plus some new characters. So that's a great place to pick up from Laguna is the Hills. But also, while the Hills was going on, we get season 3 of Laguna Beach, which is class of 2006 and 7. And it is the final season of Laguna Beach. Miss Jessica reemerges. She is flirting around town with a junior at the time. So somebody who would have been 2 grades below her. And she was young for her grade, though, because Jessica was quite a bit younger than Kristen, even though they were in the same grade. All that to say, though, that they're a year and a half or so apart in calendar years. So she's flirting it up with Cameron. Okay, but then we also get Raquel. We get Elsie's little sister,
I remember
Brianna.
That.
Mm-hmm. And one of Brianna's past best friends and her current friends are also on that show. And by current, I meant at that time in 2005-06 when the season was being filmed. We get Raquel, who was a longtime friend of Brianna's, but they have sort of been falling apart. And they had some kind of major falling out. And Raquel is now best friends with Tessa, who actually is our narrator, not Brianna. And I wonder, what do you think about this, Natalie? Because you have much more of a background in production, if you will. Do you think that was a misstep? Do you think they should have given Bri the mic?
I think they probably gave the mic to the person that was more interesting. And maybe Brianna didn't have what this new narrator had.
Maybe, but what's funny is they could have played up, and they already did, the falling out and all of the things. Maybe she was asked, and
maybe she didn't want to.
Like, ooh, let's not do that again. Right. Maybe Lauren was like, girl, go on the show, but don't be the narrator. Or whatever. Like, who knows? Mm-hmm. Who knows? I don't think Lauren had a bad time, and she was good at it, had a great season. But yeah, who knows why? But she doesn't have the mic. Tessa does. And Tessa, we don't know her from Adam when that season started. And maybe that's what MTV was looking for too, right? Maybe they're like, let's do full fresh blood, but also let's bring in someone relatable like Brianna, who's related to Elsie. They have the same smile too, her and Elsie. There's no mistaking that they're sisters.
You can tell they're related for sure.
Totally. And Lauren is on season 3, maybe randomly. I think she talks to Bri in an episode, kind of like season 2, but even less. Lauren's just not totally on it. Although there's definitely, like I said, in the beginning, the first half of season 2, she's on it much more. But season 3, it's definitely like a handful of scenes, or maybe it's only the one I can remember. They're talking about friends. They're talking about Raquel and this falling out and yada, yada, yada. And then you've got some girls that are supposed to be painted like mean girls, who incidentally, you do see in season 2, we have Kendra and Cammie, who are best friends and they're very close with who they love to kind of tout as their guys who are seniors, and then the junior Cameron, who is friends with all these senior guys who are going to be leaving. And it's really sad that towards the end of the season, when they go to graduate, Cameron's like, dude, like all my friends are graduating and leaving. Like, what am I going to do? You know? And it's just such a high school problem to have, but they all grew up on like the same street or same neighborhoods, and those were his big friends. So we watched them, the class of 2006, graduate. There's a band involved in season 3. So I think it's kind of slept on. So it is on Netflix. I think it's the only season on Netflix. No clue why Netflix doesn't have seasons 1 and 2, but Paramount has seasons 1 and 2. Maybe they don't have 3 or something. And I can't remember. But yeah, so definitely slept on. So if you enjoyed or are feeling nostalgic about season 1 and 2, definitely check out season 3 too. Again, instead of class of 04 or 05, we've moved on to class of 2006 and 7. We've got a friend falling out. We don't really have much of a love triangle except for Jessica and Kendra with Mr. Cameron. But even then, like, how serious is Jessica taking it? You know what I mean? She's already graduated high school. It's different than like Kristen and LC season 1.
They're living it every day, or at least 5 days a week while they're at school. So definitely a different atmosphere.
Right. And it is funny to me, though, that they didn't even give the mic maybe to even Cammie or Kendra, who we've seen in a handful of scenes, especially in season 2. We see them at like a card night, especially Cammie. Cammie goes to a dance with Jason. She goes to prom with Jason in season 2. So it's like, hello, you had all these opportunities, but we gave it to Tessa, who I guess had struggled health-wise throughout. So you're right. Maybe they viewed that as like an interesting, different storyline of Tessa coming out, and that maybe they viewed it as a different take and storyline, having somebody who was ill and was the best friend of the friend that Bree had a falling out of. So yeah, maybe they viewed that as like something. And Tessa in the show was edited to not like Brianna and think that she was really mean to Rocky, aka Raquel, who Cammie lovingly refers to as Rockwell because she doesn't want to say her name right on camera, which is just the most high school thing ever. And I bet you Cammie and or Kendra would cringe at those moments because listen, girls, we don't hold any high school moments against you, by the way. I loved that season, and I know that you are way more than what was edited for you almost 20 years ago. So go off. You guys were great. I loved your season, and I think it's slept on.
So that's seasons 1, 2, and 3.
And I wish there was 4, 5, and 6, but that's all we got. And like all things do, we ended on a good note. And then we also got like Newport Harbor, which was another show around the same time for class of 2006 and 7. So those shows are a little more slept on than Laguna Beach, though. So I wanted to give them a little call out. Or, well, not show, this is a season, but Newport Harbor being a show that's slept on. If you like nostalgia like I do.
And I feel like nostalgia is the what everyone's embracing nowadays. And so
it's the beat of it all, isn't it?
Yeah.
I love
really it. In all types of media, we see nostalgia tours everywhere.
Specifically 90s, 2000s, and a little call out to late 80s. I see a lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha listening to 80s music and kind of recalling to the 80s, just like we did the 70s growing up, which is like when a lot of our parents were growing up. So very cool. I loved talking about this with you. So thank you for indulging me. I hope that it brought back some good memories for you about.
Well, and now I'm going to have to go watch it because there were a lot of names, a lot of places, a lot of storylines that I vaguely remember, but I am going to have to touch up on all of that.
Oh, yeah. And I do want to also just throw in as we close that I did drag Natalie to a very specific cafe from the show.
While we were in line paying or figuring out what we're getting for our food, Paige goes, what did you say? You said something like, they filmed Laguna Beach here. Or like we sat down, you're like, I know this exact spot.
I was like, I'm pretty sure this is the table that Kristen sat at.
That's what it was.
Or no, it was when she's wearing this black hat. She's got little pigtails in. She just came back from San Francisco and she's talking to Talon, who they kind of had some off and on things, which, by the way, Lauren also did with Talon. They're trying to make her look like she was pining over Steven, but meanwhile, Miss Girl was hooking up with Talon off and on, having a totally fine senior year, had like a different boyfriend. So like go off editing because we didn't pick up on that at all. But we sat at that table.
I remember
I was like, I'm pretty sure this is where Kristen and
that's what you said. Yes.
Talon sat at that scene where he's like, we should be like hanging out though. So
I think you literally described it like that when we were sitting there.
Maybe we shouldn't gatekeep which one it was. We went to Heidelberg, duh. But there's like so many other iconic spots anyways. So yeah, I mean, people still go to look at these iconic spots down in Laguna. And that's like a whole nother episode that I won't tangent us, back into not winding our episode down, which we have to. But like people still go on their like personal little Laguna tours, going to Laguna Surf and Sport, going to Heidelberg.
It feels accessible too, because these aren't necessarily celebrities going to places we would never be able to go to. It's this small town restaurant, cafe, or the neighborhoods that you can drive past because they're not behind. They're not in these gated communities. Right.
I will say the house that we watch LC build, which I can't believe I didn't mention it, is behind a gate, but it's like the only one. And I'm not trying to be the creep that I am.
Have you driven by it?
Well, you can't because it's a manned gate. You can even see Steven be like, Steven for Lauren Conrad, and then they like let him up. But yeah, there's like a manned gate for that particular street. But you're right. Like this community isn't necessarily a gate-kept community. Like
no, it's not Hollywood.
Access these places.
Are just, well, I shouldn't say just. They are upper middle class people, but they're more people that are like everyday people.
Put it this way, Lauren's house that we see in season 1 in the very beginning, not behind a gate. The house that they're building,
upgraded
that entire season, behind a gate, the entire like little community.
They probably had to for her safety and the family safety, but we don't want to jump too far off this closing down of this episode.
That just proves there's just so much to say about this iconic show, and I'm so glad we got to talk about it.
Yeah, thank you for taking me along for the ride. I definitely learned a lot more about the lore than I would have known, so it's nice.
And there's so much more. Honestly, probably could have been one for each season, but we're not doing that. But there could have been, I swear, or at least in my mind, I could produce 3 episodes, 1 for each season. But thank you all also, on top of Natalie, for listening to me gush about my comfort show. And I owe Natalie her opportunity in the near future to gush about what she wants to gush about that I learned from.
I have so many ideas.
Oh, I'm so excited because I think it's a very fun perspective, and I hope that listeners enjoyed it too.
It might not be a show that I gush about. I think I want to take you through the feuds that were between like Ryan Ross and Brendan Urie in Panic at the Disco, or like the feud between Patrick Stump and Pete Wentz in Fall Out Boy. I like read about those a lot, so I feel like people might find those interesting, but anyway,
let's just keep the millennial nostalgia going with those episodes. I'm here for it. I love it. Thank you again to everybody for listening. We'll see you next Monday for another episode of Unscripted. But before that, you know the drill. Our standard true crime case coverage of a case that needs your attention is going to be released on Thursday. And until then, bye. I can't stress enough how big of a difference therapy through Rula has made in my life. For the last many years, I have turned to Rula to access my therapy in order to manage things like OCD, as well as just the everyday stuff from existing here on Earth. I love being able to access it virtually, especially during the pandemic. My OCD was not comfortable going in person, and the selection of therapists I was able to choose from was incredible. I seriously love my therapist that I have right now so much. So with Rula, you too can find the right therapist for you. No, really, I mean that because Rula partners with over 15,000 therapists and psychiatrists that operate nationwide. wide. And listen, most of your major insurance companies are going to cover in-network care. Most patients pay as little as $15, but depending on your coverage, you might pay $0. I know I do. And if that's not enough, Rula is committed to being there with you every step of the way. I know they've been there for me the entire time I've been with them. They've helped me find the right therapist twice now, 2 amazing therapists that I've been able to work with. They also remind me when I have an appointment. They can do this for you too. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head over to rula.com/diaries to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Go to rula.com/diaries and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares.
Hey, I'm Paige DeSorbo, and I'm always thinking about underwear.
I'm Hannah Berner, and I'm also thinking about underwear, but I prefer full coverage. I like to call them my granny panties.
Actually, I never think about underwear. That's the magic of Tommy John.
Same. They're so light and so comfy, and if it's not comfortable, I'm not wearing it.
And the bras, soft, supportive, and actually breathable.
Yes, Lord knows the girls need to breathe. Also, I need my PJs to breathe and be buttery soft and stretchy enough for my dramatic tossing and turning at night. That's why I live in my Tommy John pajamas.
Plus, they're so cute because they fit perfectly.
Put yourself on to Tommy John.
Upgrade your drawer with Tommy John. Save 25% for a limited time at TommyJohn.com/comfort. See site for details.